Hello and welcome to Illegal Knowledge. I'm Michael, and tonight our show is 666 versus 777, analyzing the apocalypse. We're going to be talking about empire and apocalypse, the end of the U.S. empire, and we'll be taking your calls in about 5-10 minutes here or so. Let's see, we got the numbers over here. I believe we got 4 lines open, I think. Let's find out. There we go. Yep. Oh, geez. That's fun. The numbers are right over there. Okay, anyway, I'll take those away. The topic this week, again, we're going to be talking about empire and apocalypse within the U.S. And comparing it about how Rome fell and whatnot. And our next week's topic is called, in 2 weeks, is Base 9 versus Kabbalah and understanding numerologies. If you're watching this on Wednesday, we are live. If you're watching this on Friday, it's the replay, and you'll be able to catch us either this coming Wednesday at 9 or next Wednesday on the 23rd of April. So tune in for that and for the next one. And hi, Kyler. Now, back to 666 and 777. There's, numbers and biblical themes and whatnot are basically a contrivance, but the whole thing is that people had talked about this occurring in Rome, and it's really just a question of, is it cyclical, and do all great nations have to go through this thing? To compare Rome and Washington D.C. Is obviously a valid comparison. You have your basically we're the U.S. has become this great imperialist nation. I mean, we used to, back in the before, say, the 1920s, or before World War I, we were pretty isolationist. And even though we had sort of a hemispheric dominance that we tried to claim and get other people out of our Western Hemisphere, and we wanted to be the only dominant power, we've become a global power and a global imperialist power. It's not so much that we're necessarily like a global policeman per se, but more like we're like the global bully, and we go in, especially with the World Bank and with the International Monetary Fund, and we basically, if not economically, we militarily control all these other nations, between Africa and obviously in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I mean, we're not helping them. We have, some people might argue, oh, they need economic aid, but the economic aid comes with so many strings attached that it's become really a kind of a detriment to anybody who gets our help, even if our help comes from the World Bank or from the IMF. Basically it tends to benefit, again, like the rich top 2% or 0.2%, the same as is designed in this country. And I think that is basically, that's the plan. We know that we're going to do this, and we know that is going to be the result. And to think otherwise is sort of, just letting yourself be duped. Especially, there's a big problem is just that the American people, even upon seeing this, are so apathetic, or just don't even want to know that their government is doing this. And, because, we should, foster democracy and whatnot. But, that's not what we're doing. I mean, we're totally, propping up other petty tyrants, in, Indonesia and whatnot. And for, for the corporations that come from this country that want to dominate, do it economically, and then we have our government which goes out and dominates militarily, and not even dominates militarily, but brings along people like Blackwater and Vakkenhut and KBR, all those Halliburton types and private contractors, and all these people are feeding off the public trough. It's taxpayers' money, it's your money, and it's going towards this whole imperialist state, and there's no reason that, given what is going on here, that people should be so apathetic. And it's kind of like, just, oh, it's too terrible to believe, I don't want to listen to it, I can't, But, I mean, if you face it and you look at it and examine it, shine light on it, you come out and, it's not so scary. And people just need to reduce that. The other problem is, the power of the executive can be compared easily. I mean, Rome was huge on the imperialism. It grew. You're ending up with so much land, and you're spread so thin that you can't control. And that's the downfall of imperialism. The downfall within the government itself is, Caesar, Augustus. Well, Caesar losing the republic to an empire, and Augustus becoming, the first Roman emperor, as opposed to having, the actual Senate and everything, making the laws and having a republic. And I would say that if not in this administration, it would have been perhaps Wilson in 1913, when the Federal Reserve Bank took control of the monetary supply, because he who controls a nation's currency controls the government. It doesn't matter who makes the laws; it's who controls the money, the banks. But that was a problem for Rome as well. The Bush now has basically seized control of the whole government. We don't really have a separation of powers. The executive branch controls everything. Cheney is like, the office of the vice president is, some fourth branch of government that isn't responsible to any of the other branches. And again, it's a question of, why are people not looking at this, and why are we just letting ourselves fall into, this whole state of empire, when, being in a republic is where there is, where there is rule of law. And being a constitutional republic, which is what the United States should be, it is the rule of law is governed by a constitution or governing document. We are losing that to an imperialist fascist state, fascist police state, in fact. We have this incredibly, hugely growing debt that's at, $9 trillion on the books, and then another, who knows, maybe up to $51 trillion. What's going to be interesting, well, plus the whole idea of our currency isn't backed by anything. It's all fiat currency, which means that it's what we say it is, but we can print more of it, and it's going to be worthless, which is going to make it even harder for us to pay off our debt, because our money won't be worth anything. If the debt is expressed in terms of U.S. dollars, that's one thing, but if the debt is expressed in terms of foreign demands, then if the U.S. dollar would go even further down in relation to other currencies, then it's going to take even more and more and more money to pay off the debt. There's, the problem of that if we can't pay off the interest on the debt, then we can be bankrupted. And if the gross national product, which is somewhere around, $4 trillion-ish, like that, is smaller than the interest payments, so the total amount of money that the nation's populace makes, the gross national product, is smaller than the amount of interest annually that we owe, then we would be bankrupt. And in order for that to happen, depending on what your interest rate is, but say it's 5%, you got, 20 times 4, if we reach, 80 or so, maybe somewhere around that, we're at 50-ish by the highest estimates. If we get to $80 trillion in debt, we're going to be bankrupt. The same thing happened to Rome. They couldn't keep, they were spending lavishly and could not keep control of the public spending, could not keep control of any kind of pork barrel type things, the same thing that we do. Again, then there's all this public ignorance and dependence upon the system. Because, not to say that, certain programs aren't worth it, but there's, particularly in education, but that's where we seem to be cutting back when we need to cut back. We don't cut back in, say, the military. We just keep giving all the money through these processes of, here we're going to create a war. Actually, I just found out that and I don't have something that I can put on the overhead to show you, but I will see if I can get that in 2 weeks. A document that shows it's the training manual for the insurgency, but it was written in Iraq, the insurgency there, the Al Qaeda, but it was written by the Department of Defense of the U.S. So we now we're training the insurgents to fight our guys to perpetuate a war which was false, under false pretenses in the first place, and then furthermore is being waged on all false fronts. So the war is completely a sham. It is a distraction from the fact that we are becoming empire, and the richest 0.02%, whatever, however many few people you want to include on this, are taking all of the money from the taxpayers through the corporations and into the pockets of the already rich. Now, this will end one way or another. There might be a revolution. The economy might collapse, and there might be something like that. We might go bankrupt and get taken over by China. But you see, what we're doing is we're either way, unless there's a truly popular revolution and we radically reform how the government operates and call a new constitutional convention, we are going to end up back in terms of bondage. No, it's too late. Sorry about that. We're going to end up back in servitude. And that is the result of apathy. There's actually a little diagram. The one person in Chicago is here, but I haven't had a chance to talk with him about any of the topic tonight. Actually, I had thought that the topic this week was going to be next week's topic. So I told a bunch of people, but so he didn't miss. He'll be on next week, in 2 weeks, on the 23rd, when we talk about base 9 versus the Kabbalah. If you are just tuning in, though, this week we're talking about 666 versus 777, analyzing the apocalypse, talking about how the U.S. is going from empire to, would it be revolution? Anyway, you go from a state of bondage to individualism, which brings about courage, which then comes from that then comes liberty, and then fosters abundance, which brings upon apathy, which leads to dependency and back to bondage. And it seems to be that this is the course of the cycle of throughout history of all the great empires that go through this cycle and they fail because they can't sustain the liberty with abundance. But that's why they're trying to get out of that. But yet it becomes unsustainable because of the apathy, because people are getting used to the abundance. And as Thomas Jefferson says, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and you cannot, lead to apathy. You must always be vigilant. You must always prevent any dependence on the government. The government is a vehicle to be used by the people and not the controlling aspect to be dominated over which dominates the people. Speaking of apocalypse here, one of the things, mark of the beast, is one of the things that's mentioned in the Bible, and not to harp on the Bible because there are many ways that we could go to apocalypse, but that you can't buy or sell without having the mark of the beast. The real ID card, the money that maybe if you, instead of having, if you can't buy or sell without a U.S. real ID, if you, in order to get a credit card, or in order to get, say, we go cashless, in order to get a credit card or whatever you want to call it for you instead of cash, you would have to present a real ID. So you can't buy or sell without. I mean, that's one of the types of marks. The whole thing of 666 is sometimes noted as 600 plus 60 plus 6, but as separate. You have a 600, and then you have a 60, and then you have a 6. But what's interesting, and I just looked this up online and whatnot, but 1776 expressed in Roman numerals is 9 characters long, 9 Roman numerals long. It's MDCC LXXVI, whereas M is 1,000, D is 500, C is 100, L is 50, X is 10, V is 5, I is 1. So you have MDCC, so that's 1,000, 500, 6, 1,700, LXX, which is 50, 60, 70, and then VI, which is 6. If you take if you separate it into thirds, into MDC, and then CLX, and then XVI, and take the second 2 of each triad, you have DC, which is 600, you have LX, which is 60, and you have VI, which is 6. So you have in the Roman numerals, by the way, from 1776, the founding of the United States, you have the beast, the number of the beast is 666, and you'll be known by it. The other thing is, obviously you have the pyramid with the all-seeing eye minus the capstone. There's again another sign that we are potentially this beast. There's also some talk that maybe it would be the European Union because of the 10 member states and whatnot. And it's very possible that it's just a combination of both of those two. That's biblically, but just regardless of biblically, I mean, we're really, really close to the edge here, and things are going to hit the fan. There's going to be more and more crackdowns, things like that. One example, tax protesting. All of a sudden, if you're on April 15th, not even saying you don't file your taxes, or but going out and actually like carrying a picket sign and protesting on April 15th is now federally criminal. Under federal statute, they've made it federally illegal to go and protest on April 15th. Now, obviously, that's free speech. You can't make it illegal, but federally. One other thing I wanted to shout out to everybody in the who went to the city council yesterday night. And thank you for going. Obviously, you heard that we're going to be investigating their walk-up and potentially doing a recall. So everyone keep posted. I'll let you know what's going on with that. I'm going to take some calls. Let's put up the phone numbers here. Oh, there, look, they're in the right place now. Oops, did I just take them off? The phone numbers are on now. Got to wait for the delay. Yes, there they go. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and call in. I'll take some calls. We're talking about the analyzing the apocalypse, 666 versus 777. Okay, here we go. There's a call. Welcome. You're on Illegal Knowledge.
Hello.
Yes, hello. You're on the air.
Okay. You mentioned the fascist government a few minutes earlier.
Uh-huh.
And one of the classical characteristics of a fascist government is a strong, domineering leader who the public worship as an icon.
Sure.
And do you have any thoughts on who that might be?
Well, I mean, I think you could. I'm not so sure that that leader is really George W. Although people have definitely said that he's probably the Antichrist or whatever. But people are saying that everybody's the Antichrist eventually or something. Somebody who is that charismatic. I mean, Obama comes to mind. What do you think? I think we lost the call.
No,
Are you still there? Okay.
I'm still here.
Okay.
I'm still bushy-tailed.
Who would you suggest?
There is a possibility of McCain. I'm sorry to be offensive for any Arizona, but McCain would be the most likely prospect.
Well, I've been saying for a long time that McCain seems to be more to the left of either Hillary or Obama, who have voting records which suggest that they should be Republicans and not Democrats.
Well, one other issue is that the corporations are suffering from very severe contradictions at this point in history, and they will go further and further. They have, during every presidential election, going further and further to install their own comrades, as they have taken the election with George W. Bush in Florida.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance, I see, several of the admirals that opposed U.S. policy toward Iran have been fired recently, and there seems to be a slow, deliberate movement to inaugurate a October surprise, which will definitely take the election for McCain.
But something in Iran you think will be the October surprise?
Yes.
Yeah. I just can't wait to see what happens. Well, you know how Greg Palast called it the Bush cycle, where you go from industry into government and then back through to industry, so that you can help your cronies and the cronies in the government help the industry over here, and then the industry gives the election funds for the elected officials, and they just cycle back and forth from public service to private sector to help each other out to cronyism basically. But the Bush cycle is what Greg Palast called it. I think it's kind of interesting it would be interesting to see where everyone ends up.
As long as we're running on a Chinese credit card that you mentioned earlier, if the Chinese decide
the Chinese call in the debt and we can't afford to pay them, we have to declare bankruptcy. Yeah. Right.
Well, the Chinese have a different worldview than we have.
Very.
They seem to be more humanitarian, less military than we are.
Well, I'm not sure if they're more humanitarian. I really am not sure about that. I mean, I still think that we have more freedoms than the Chinese by probably a decent amount.
When I say humanitarian, what I mean is that the Chinese, even though civil rights is not as advanced in that country as here, and we have privileges, constitutional privileges here that they don't have there.
There's more gender equality, but there isn't. I mean, they're kind of. Well, Japan's worse, but they're a little bit xenophobic. They're not very racially diverse. And I mean, look what they're doing to the Tibetans. I mean, they've taken over Tibet. That's a little imperialism. I mean, they're not as bad as the U.S. But I want to go to one more call here. But thanks for your call.
You're welcome.
All right. Welcome. You're on the air. You're on Illegal Knowledge. Hello. Welcome. You are on Illegal Knowledge.
Hello, Michael. How you doing?
Hey. We got 30 seconds. Hurry.
Oh,
Quick.
you've only got a 25-minute program.
Yeah, I know. It's apparently the lottery is a first in, last out. I mean, a first in, first out affair or something.
Yeah.
No, first in, last out.
Well,
Yeah.
what you said about the Roman numerals, the prophecy about
It's
calculate the number of a man.
Bye,
That's
everybody.
what it is.
We're done. Bye.